Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to our session. Today, we're going to be talking about AI-ready automation for SAP Materials Management and really how you can use that to drive SAP S/4HANA success. I'm Andrew Hayden. I'm the Principal Product Marketing Manager for the Automate products here at Precisely, and I will be your host today. And today, we have the privilege of being joined by one of our outstanding sales engineers, Sigrid Koch. Sigrid, do you want to introduce yourself and give the folks a little bit of a preview of what you're going to be talking about when we have our demonstration a little bit?
Thanks, Andrew. Sigrid Koch. I'm based out of the San Francisco Bay Area, plus the Golden Gate Bridge. Been with the company about 16 years, and I'll be showing you a demonstration for the Material Master process that includes a number of different objects, which is a very common kind of use case that people use our solution for.
Thanks, Sigrid, and we'll be back with Sigrid in just a few minutes. So before we get started, if you've got any questions, don't forget to type them into the chat box. Unfortunately, the current platform we have doesn't allow us to do like live Q&A. But if you type there is somebody online right now who will be checking and answering your questions as they come in. If we do not get to your question during the session, just know that somebody from Precisely will get back to you with the answer to your question. So it will not go unanswered. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to start off talking about the CIO's dilemma, which is not just the CIO, it's your entire C-level organization. And it's really all of the challenges that are hitting them from different aspects of the business, really across the board. Then we're going to talk about challenges with SAP modernization. You know, if you think about SAP, often it is the heart of a broader IT modernization, and there's a lot of challenges that go with that. And I think everybody here who's got an SAP ERP system is going through that right now. From there, we're going to talk about, we're going to really dive into SAP Material Master and what are some of the challenges that we see? Why is it so important to our business? And then we're going to look at how Precisely Automate can help you overcome a lot of those challenges that come with the Material Master. And included with that is going to be Sigrid's demonstration. And I think you're going to really enjoy that. Once we get through the demonstration, I'm going to walk through a couple of case studies and do a brief wrap up, and we should be done for the day. All right, so let's dive into it. You know, when we talk about the CIO's dilemma, it really revolves around a number of complex challenges. One is just this highly dynamic business environment that we're in today. You know, you never know what's going to sort of come at your business from that you have no control over. There are macro effects, is geopolitical disruptions that happen. There's supply chain disruptions. You can have a war breakout, it seems like, at almost any time. And you don't know how to plan your business for those things. So a lot of our C-level executives are trying to build or develop agile organizations that can adjust very quickly to these business environment changes. Now, if you're going through an SAP modernization, there's a lot of resource being taken up by that. So as I mentioned earlier, SAP modernization is often at the heart of a broader IT modernization. And there was a company named Horvath that did a research study. They found that 60% of SAP migration and modernization initiatives are either delayed or over budget. So SAP modernization in and of itself is taking up a massive amount of the resources within our IT organizations. And then when you layer on everything else that is around that in terms of the other systems that we're upgrading, the legacy systems we're getting rid of, the move to cloud, all those kind of things, it really is at the heart of a massive amount of complexity within our IT organizations. And then add on top of this that a lot of our C-level executives are just getting hit with so much information about artificial intelligence, what it is, what it can do, what is the promise that's being made for how it can change our world, basically. But it requires a significant improvement in things like data quality and data integrity. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. Now, there's a company called HFS, and they made this quote a number of years ago, but I think continues to be very true. And the quote is, "Technology is a means to an end, but data is the currency of digital transformation." So just replace digital transformation with artificial intelligence, and you're hitting the nail on the head. We're spending a lot of money right now on the hardware and software needed for artificial intelligence. But if you don't have the underlying data that you need to be in terms of quality and integrity and just the right data in the right place at the right time, artificial intelligence is going to fail on you. And I think we're seeing a lot of that in terms of the results that have happened so far. AI is showing up everywhere, but ROI has been elusive at best. You know, you think about the massive opportunity, but again, It's a massive opportunity, but you have to have trusted, unified, governed data in order to drive it. I think it's MIT did a study that found that 95% of the AI initiatives that have been attempted or brought forth in enterprises have failed. So 5% are showing a return on that investment. And 72% of the executives asked said that managing data is really the top barrier to AI success. Yeah. So it's understanding what do we do in terms of looking at automation and looking at our data, and how do those two come together and where do they work together? SAP is a very core part of that. So that's where we are when you think about AI. Now, going back to that CIO's dilemma, there is this tension between today and tomorrow. As you're going through a modernization effort, you have to maintain continuity in your business today, despite a lot of things that may be holding you back. You've got long IT lead times. You've got a lot of manual processes still. You've got on-premise IT infrastructure that is often legacy. It's old. It's expensive to maintain. It's expensive to upgrade. And then you have this fragmented data environment that makes it very difficult to understand what is actually happening from your data, how to access it, and how to take full advantage of it and leverage it. Because tomorrow you want to get to a point where all of these, what are currently kind of barriers to success, become drivers to a greater success and better business results. You want agile innovation in your IT organization. You want scalable automation across your business teams. You want cloud-first IT infrastructure that takes a lot of that management burden off of your IT organization. And you want to be able to have data that is of the highest quality and integrity so you can get true data-driven insights. And you can drive and feed AI engines. So this really is the heart of that CIO's dilemma. It's looking at today, it's looking at tomorrow, and figuring out how do we get to the point where we can be highly successful as a business despite all of these challenges. We drill down a little bit further and we start looking at the SAP modernization challenges. That adds just another layer to it. SAP creates a very interesting situation for many of us where we are forced to use certain processes to create and manage our data. So when I talk to a lot of organizations, I think they look at it as, SAP is process first and data comes along for the ride. And I think that's very true, but there is this interdependence of process and data. You can't separate the two in an SAP environment. So if you can't do a process improvement initiative without looking at the data that process is creating and managing, because if that process is creating and managing bad data and you're not paying attention to that, you can create a lot of bad data very, very quickly. Same thing on data quality. And we've got some great examples of customers who had data quality initiatives, and what they realized was that their process was just continuing to generate bad data. So they're fixing data over here while the process is just pumping in new bad data. So being able to overcome that is something that is very important in your SAP environment. So it is one of those great challenges, is understanding that interdependence of the two and how do you overcome it. Again, automation is a great way to do that, and I think we're going to show you examples of that today. Over the past few years, we've started doing a lot of research with ASUG, the American SAP User Group. And one of the things that keeps coming to the surface over and over again is just the complexity within SAP. And it's the multidimensionality of this complexity that we're beginning to realize and recognize is causing a lot of the challenges. So the data itself in SAP is complex. And we're going to talk about this as we talk through the materials challenges today. And in order to create and manage that data, you've got complex processes. Those processes that often go through multiple steps and require multiple people from across different parts of the organization. And once you do that, now you've got different interest groups and different concerns and cadences and desires and needs. So this whole combination of data, process, and organization really drive a lot of complexity across your SAP enterprise. And we see this again in the data we did. So 63% of our respondents in last year's survey found that one of the barriers to automation is just the complexity of the business process itself. It's how many steps does it go through? Who is it? Who has to do what, when, and what are the challenges to making that happen in a timely manner? There's a great deal of inefficiency, especially when you're going through the modernization process, because we see lots and lots of customers who have multiple user interface environments. So in ECC, they're working in the traditional SAP GUI. When they've moved to S/4HANA, they moved to Fiori, and they've got GUI for HTML. And often they're running these three concurrently. They may still have multiple ECC systems while they're migrating them into a single instance of S/4HANA. So being able to do that where you've got a lot of different people on your business teams having to understand what those interfaces are can be very difficult. And ASUG's own research found that 34% of S/4HANA migrations are delayed. So this fits with that Horvath number that we saw. So this is something to keep in mind is there were a lot of obstacles to IT and SAP modernization to overcome as we go through this process. Materials is a big part of that. So if we think about the SAP Material Master, as we narrow this down even further, master data in and of itself is complex. And in SAP, we think of master data in 4 basic buckets, which is material, vendor, customer, and finance. But it's not just those records that we have to be concerned about. It's everything that falls below them. It's bills of materials, it's routings, it's terms of service, it's hierarchies and conditions and everything else that goes along with that are dependent on those master data records being accurate, correct, and timely. And so when we talk about master data, we're often looking at this complexity of data, process, and organization again. Now, when we think about Material Master in particular, Material Master really often sits at the center of your business because it touches so many different parts of it. It touches your production and manufacturing. Obviously, they need to know what's going into something, and they need to know that they've got all those materials available to be able to manufacture a product. Purchasing and procurement is going to have to buy those products. Inventory management needs to know what they are, how big are they, when can they be expected? Do they require special handling? Finance, accounting, and controlling are looking at, who's supplying this particular material that we have to pay. What's their information? So now it's connected to your supplier/vendor records. Controlling's looking at it as it goes through a manufacturing process. Obviously, you're adding value to it. What does that look like? What does that work in process? Valuation and margin start to look like? Sales and marketing need that information in terms of what goes into the product. What are some of the features? What are some of the benefits that we get out of it? So Material Master often sits in a very, very specific central location in your organization. And if you think about the complexity of a Material Master record, the average Material Master record has somewhere around 300 data elements. And that, if you're in the SAP GUI or Fiori or GUI for HTML, you've got multiple screens that you're having to manage that data through. So on average in the SAP GUI, it's 18 screens. 18 of those tiny little screens, and you have to know what goes on what of those screens. That's out of a potential of 36. So there's a lot of complexity and a lot of just personal intellectual knowledge that you have to have in order to create and manage material records. And from a manual standpoint, can be very complex and require specific knowledge by individual workers. And if somebody retires or if somebody leaves the business, sometimes you can just lose that knowledge completely. Big challenge that we see just around that complexity of master data records. A Material Master creates its own set of challenges. We talked about process complexity, and sometimes there's inconsistencies. We've talked to lots of customers that different plants will manage their materials differently sometimes, or they've acquired an organization and they've got a different way of managing their processes and managing their data. So you've got data creation and management processes that can be different across organizations. Data quality and maintenance. You've got to make sure that data quality is of the highest possible when it's input. And then when you're managing that data, you need to make sure that the data quality is maintained. It's interesting. One of the things we find is that often the place where a lot of the data quality problems come in is when you're managing that data or making updates to it over time. Because often that record is being touched dozens of times in a fairly short period of time if you're doing updates or if you're doing changes or over just the life of that individual record. So process simplification and standardization is very important. And one of the best ways to do that is through automation. Because what that's going to do is it's going to standardize your processes, it's going to standardize your data formats, it's going to give you an auditable record of that process, and it's going to help you govern that data in a way that is going to ensure that you've got quality and quality consistent data every time. And how do you do that? Well, we believe very firmly that the best way to do it is with Precisely Automate. So the Precisely Automate platform or the portfolio really consists of these 3 products. One is Automate Studio. Studio is a desktop application that is either Excel or Google Sheets to SAP. So you can actually create and manage that data in your spreadsheet. And we know that a lot of companies do this. They originate their SAP data in a spreadsheet. And then what they do, so you've got manual data entry within that spreadsheet. And then for review and approval or additions to that data, different people see it, different people touch that spreadsheet. And then you may have an email trail, you may have a way of doing that, and then it gets posted into SAP. In some cases, it gets posted automatically. Studio allows you to not only govern that process, but you can validate that data before it gets put into SAP. So you can make any corrections you need to. You can set mandatory fields, you can set optional fields, you can create formats, you can build your business rules into a Studio script. And with Studio Manager, it allows you to not only centralize the distribution of those scripts, but it gives you some server-side capabilities. So it gives you server-side capabilities for things like scheduling jobs, managing, again, distributing those standard set of scripts, managing your licenses and who your users are, so you can set permissions with it. And then Evolve is our full form and workflow business process automation platform. And you're going to see Sigrid is going to show you a really great demonstration of how we help you manage material and product data using Evolve. And what does all this give you? Well, it gives you the ability to make an impact across your business. So the Precisely Automate portfolio is a no-code, low-code portfolio. So it's a platform that is really geared towards business users. And we've got a lot of companies that have citizen developer teams across their organization that are creating and managing those automation scripts, both for Studio and in some cases Evolve, that work across their entire SAP landscape. So we've got one example is one of the largest companies in the world that has a core team of about 25 people in their Automate team. And they support a network of over 100 citizen developers worldwide. So it means they've been able to scale and expand automation very, very quickly, again, across their entire SAP landscape and across their enterprise. And this is anywhere from, like I mentioned earlier, finance, accounting, plant maintenance, production management, human resources, you name it. Anywhere that SAP ERP goes, we can go there too. And what this ultimately is about is empowering business teams to make an impact. We believe very firmly that the people who are closest to the process and closest to the data should be responsible for the automation creation and simplifying and streamlining those processes that they've got within SAP. They're the ones who understand it. And often when you have a no-code, low-code platform like ours, you are able to distribute the responsibility for creating automation. Like I mentioned, that company that has over 100 citizen developers. So they're able to expand very, very quickly and empower those business teams to make an impact globally. So now I'm going to turn it over to Sigrid, and Sigrid is going to show you a really great demonstration of how Automate Evolve can help you create and manage product data much more efficiently. Sigrid?
Thanks, Andrew. Let's dive in. Let's take a look at how we can streamline material creation using Evolve. In this demonstration, we'll be creating a single finished good from a reference material. We'll be leveraging the classification data to find that reference data and then add a class to it. We'll extend it to multiple plants, create a BOM, and have some of the tasks in parallel so that we can finish faster. Let's take a look at the process that we'll run through for this demonstration, noting that this is a very simplified process. There are often more teams involved in both collecting and approving data for the finished good, as well as other supporting objects to make that finished good usable in SAP. In our process, we'll be leveraging the initial request to find that reference data and fill out most of that finished good. It'll then be routed to the master data team to review and post. If there's any issue, that can be rejected back to the requester. Otherwise, it will be routed in parallel to a centralized team for plant extensions that can be implemented in a way to distribute it to the individual plants. We'll also route it to the product team to create a BOM. That BOM can also include routings, recipes, production versions, change masters, and any number of additional supporting objects. Once both of those are done, it will be routed to the master data team to review and post. If there's any issue, that can be rejected back to one or both teams as needed. And once the master data team approves and posts it, this process is completed. Let's take a look. I'm here in my Evolve app, and it's showing me processes that are completed and running, any kind of trends, and then my favorite processes, as well as any tasks that I have open. I'll go ahead and take a look at all of the processes that I could initiate and launch the finished good creation. Here we start with a search for a reference material. There's material range, type, plant, and then we're leveraging a class. So this did a live search in SAP and found 52 matches, and we'll go ahead and select one. And you'll see here that we've pre-populated the organization data and returned back a number of fields based on that reference material for the finished good definition. We're also going to get the class characteristic values, and I'll make an update here on the cover to hardcover. And as we're making changes, it's creating a new description, or what might be called a smart description. The same kind of concept could be used for smart part numbers. Now we can go through and make any adjustments we want. I'll go ahead and update the cross-plant status. And this was a live lookup to SAP. We can make any other adjustments we wish. And again, this could be routed to multiple teams for collection and approval. And we can go ahead and submit. And in this process, we're forcing the person who is contributing data to check it against SAP, what we call validate, before it can be moved along. And here we're getting an error message that the standard price is missing. So we'll go ahead and add that and revalidate. Once we get success, we know SAP can post this data. So it's a good time to be able to move it along. If we weren't done, we could save it and come back. Take a look at my tasks. And you'll see here now I put on my master data hat. This is routed to a team that can pick off of the queue, and so now it's no longer on the queue. And you'll see my classification is read-only, so the master data team could be allowed to edit or perhaps not. And they can review this information that was submitted, and now they have an opportunity to post. This creates that finished good, and now we'll add the classification. Since everything's been posted, there's no longer an option to reject, so we'll go ahead and approve. And now we have the parallel task. Again, I'm playing all roles, so let's take a look at plant entry. Now here we're seeing the other plants that are typically used to extend a finished good. It's coming from a reference data list, so it pulls in the plants and storage location and any other information that might be part of an extension and default it. Those can be adjusted as needed. And again, this has to be validated prior to completing this task. So I'll go ahead and validate. And we have success. Now in the prior step, we created one finished good. If you wanted to create multiple finished goods, this would be one way to approach it by putting them in a table. Let's go ahead and complete the plant extension step for inputs and go to the product entry input. Now we're going to enter the BOM. We're going to use that reference material and read it. And then we'll go ahead and adjust the cover style by looking that up. And now we can validate it and move it along. Finally, we're going back to the master data team to review both the extensions and the BOM for posting. So we can review the data entered here, clear the validate checkbox, and post. And again, those plants can be sent decentralized to the different teams and posted as they're completed. And then we can create the BOM. And as I mentioned, the BOM is simply one part of the supporting objects. It could include routings, recipes, production versions, changes, raw materials, you name it, whatever's needed to create that BOM. And that could be extended to all of the plans. We'll go ahead and approve and complete since we've posted both objects. And we're done. We can come here and see the process history. That's all of the who, what, when, and where from the bottom up. So the first step for submitting the request, and then it was sent to a team and this person approved it. It then got routed for plan entry, product entry. You'll see these two people completed it, and then it got routed to master data team to post. All of this information is in our Evolve process database, as well as any attributes that you wish to report on to allow you to do detailed auditing, as well as reporting on what's happening, how many, how long, what's late, as well as looking for process improvements. And those can be exposed in the reporting tool of your choice, including Evolve reports. So the benefits of leveraging Evolve for your material creation is you can create that material or set of materials along with all the supporting objects in one process. We're helping you improve data quality by providing lookups, checks at each step to get the data first time right by forcing validation at the time of entry. We're also accelerating the business process by forcing that check so it doesn't bounce back and forth, as well as providing steps that can be completed in parallel. These Evolve processes are very flexible and allow you to adapt as your business needs change, and perhaps you can add additional supporting objects or adjust them. And it's always following your best practices for each and every process, and that also makes the process compliant with your requirements and for auditors. And it gives you that greater process visibility. I hope you can see how Evolve can help you streamline and automate that process creation, whether that be something simple like I showed you or something much more complex. Thank you. Back to you, Andrew.
All right. Thanks, Sigrid. So that was a really great demonstration of what we can do for some of our customers to help them streamline and automate that product data management. A couple of examples of companies that have done this extremely successfully. One is an energy drinks company. So this is a company that did everything in spreadsheets. I mean, every single one of their products was basically, if you think of every flavor had a workbook. In that workbook were worksheets, and within those worksheets were columns and cells, and individuals owned the workbook, sometimes the worksheet, sometimes just a column within that worksheet. Sometimes it was just a cell within a column, within a worksheet, within a workbook. So there was a massive amount of just manual data entry, kind of a mess. I think they admit that, kind of a little bit of spreadsheet hell and chaos. But the problem they had, or what the challenge they ran into, was they did a global distribution deal. They were primarily a regional player. They did a global distribution deal with a very large soft drinks manufacturer that had a number of SLAs built into it. And so now what it meant is that this spreadsheet-driven based process simply couldn't scale fast enough, because they suddenly needed to be able to address global markets, which meant new supply chains, new plants, new languages, new sales organizations, new customers, everything. So you can imagine the level of complexity just exploded on them. So they were able to adopt an Evolve solution that streamlined that process considerably and automated it. It got rid of those spreadsheets completely. And while they're going through all this complex change, they actually cut the time that it took to get a new product to market in half. So despite this, exponential level of complexity, they got their time to market in half. And now they had visibility, and they had the ability to audit and understand exactly what was happening at every step of the way as they were producing those beverages. So that's the power of automation that you can see. And when you're going from that kind of highly complex manual process that's just not scalable to a global organization. Another great example of this is a company named Dorman. Now, they're a manufacturer for the automobile industry, and they had a situation where it was just a simple material change. And now, just think about this. How many of you have very simple material changes that you need to make regularly? So in their case, it was taking a subset of their SKUs from being listed as manufactured to kitted. Basic, simple. It was going to affect routings, sales orders, bills of materials, things like that. And they realized that to make those changes per 100 materials, it's going to take them 60 hours, was going to end up costing about $4,500 because they had to hire people to do that. They couldn't do that with their existing staff. 60 hours is a long time. And that's per 100 materials, and they had thousands of these. So what they found was Automate Studio, and with Studio, they were able to do that same 100 materials in about 5 hours using the staff they had. They figure it cost them probably a little less than $400 per 100 materials. So it's a 90% savings in both time and in money. They're guessing that their savings was probably $500,000 in the first year of implementation. So that's the kind of power that something like Studio, a desktop product, can have when you have these mass changes that are normally very complex in something as complex as a material record. So that's the kind of success we see. With Evolve, it can be streamlining that process down, and despite the complexity. And with Studio, it's taking complex processes that can just take a lot of time to do manually and streamline them so you can do them quickly and accurately when you do them in groups or in batches. Now, take that and add AI technology on top of it. I'm sure you're wondering, where's the AI part of this? Here it is. So we are working on adding AI features to Evolve and to Studio in ways that really drive a lot of practical applications. We look at that MIT study that said that only 5% are showing any ROI, and it's like there has to be a way to do that we can really help our customers see ROI very quickly. So we're looking to add an AI assistant into Evolve. We are doing intelligent rules discovery and intelligent autocomplete. So rules discovery will look at your current data and identify the rules that have been applied. Intelligent autocomplete will take all of your historical data for a material, let's say a material record. And when you're creating a new material, now you can add just a little bit of data and it will auto-populate that material record field. So those 300 data elements are not having to be manually added. Now you're going to get a form back that has those fields already pre-filled out with a confidence level. How confident are we that this is the right answer for that? So instead of it becoming a manual data entry exercise, it becomes a review and correction exercise. And that can have huge benefits across your organization in terms of streamlining that entire process. Material management, we know, is difficult. A lot of our customers, that's where they start. So that's a very important one for us. And then an Evolve MCP server, which means that you can bring your own LLM and have it be able to access Evolve data and query Evolve and find out what it needs to know. Well, we know that a lot of our customers who use SAP aren't just looking to use Joule for everything. They also are using Chat or Claude or Gemini or some other LLM, some other AI core engine that they're using across their enterprise. Well, this is going to give that the ability to connect into Evolve. That's what we're focused on when it comes to AI technologies for Precisely Automate. We're looking for practical solutions that are going to drive business success quickly that you're going to see ROI from. Now, this gives you a lot of benefits. Our entire portfolio is designed to give you benefits. And we've got examples of this if you go to precisely.com. But you're looking for that business agility. I mentioned that earlier. Complex business environments that are highly disruptive, you need business agility, and automation can do that, and Automate helps you do that. You need speed. You saw examples of speed with both the energy drinks company and with Dorman. Improved data quality. Remember, within the Automate platform, you were able to validate that data before it gets posted to SAP and make any corrections. So you can put guardrails in place that make sure that it is accurately formatted. You have process visibility. That was one of the big things for the energy drinks company, is they had no visibility into their spreadsheets, and now they know exactly what's happening at every step of the process, right from a dashboard. Business team focus, I mentioned that. Citizen developers, very important to us. Automation flexibility. So automation flexibility has a lot of different connotations to it, and there's a lot of different ways. You can look at it as being automating anywhere in your SAP environment from the same platform, from a common platform. It means you can choose what's the best way to do it. Is it going to be a form and workflow solution? Is it going to be a spreadsheet-based solution? Scalability. We work across your entire enterprise. So you can choose to start in one particular area. Maybe it's materials management with your master data material master team. And then you can look at things like your supply chain and your suppliers, and look at customers, and look at your financial and GL accounts and what's happening there. And ultimately, because you've got higher data quality and the ability to check that, you've got an audit trail for your processes, you're going to get more precise forecasting and reporting. So all of these are benefits you can get from adopting Precisely Automate. Now, really quickly to wrap up, some of the strategic benefits that we've talked about, and I just can't emphasize this enough. High quality data and well-governed processes are going to support your modernization efforts and your overall data integrity. Now, you're looking for increased efficiency and cost savings, and we can deliver that. You're looking for an enhanced customer experience, whether your customer is external or internal. When we talk about internal customers, we're often talking about that business user who doesn't want to deal with, is this the traditional SAP GUI? Do I need to do this in Fiori? Do I need to do this in the web GUI? Now we can just give them a common interface, whether it's a spreadsheet or whether it's a form. And they don't need to care what's in the background. Really can improve your overall customer experience if it's an internal customer, like I said. And it can eliminate a lot of the change management challenges that you might have when you're moving from ECC to S/4HANA. Your data quality is better, so you've got better decision making, and ultimately it's about competitive advantage. You can do things faster, you have better data, you understand where you are in a process or in a situation much more clearly. So let's overcome that CIO's dilemma. You're talking about business agility. No code, low code gives you that. It gives you the people who understand the process and the data, the ability to develop your automation. Much, much faster time to value. We're not talking about adopting automation in months or years. We're talking about being able, in some cases, to adopt Studio within a week. We've had people do it, and evolve within a few weeks, depending on the complexity of the process and what needs to go through it. And again, applicable across your entire SAP landscape, modules, lines of business. With artificial intelligence, you're talking about data management and process automation for clean, governed data. Artificial intelligence, like I said, we are really focused on delivering practical solutions for it. And those Evolve AI features are really going to help you get that. And then when it comes to SAP modernization, being able to automate not only in the SAP GUI, but throughout your migration to Fiori and GUI for HTML can be very important and a very clean way to do it for your organization. Hosted offerings and cloud offerings to get you out of that on-prem nightmare that many of us are dealing with, where you've got legacy equipment or you've got very expensive equipment, and it not only is the equipment's expensive, the people to manage it can be very expensive. We support clean core approach. A lot of people, as they move to S/4HANA, are looking to adopt clean core, not only from process, but from a data standpoint. Well, we have the ability with Evolve and even with Studio to let you, if you've got a custom process, but you want to deliver standard data into S/4HANA, you can do that with Automate. And then we have APIs in Evolve that allow you to connect to other systems. So one of the most common ones we see, it's not materials related, but it's people looking to do common data management between SAP and Salesforce. So we have a Salesforce connector that means that you have an Evolve form where you are able to have the data go to both systems at the same time. So you create the data once, it's in both instances. So very, very efficient way to do it. These are some of the things that Precisely Automate can help you do. It can drive those benefits in materials management. It can drive benefits across your entire SAP landscape. So hopefully this has been very helpful, and hopefully you have a better understanding of some of the benefits that Precisely Automate can bring to you and to your organization. And if you're not familiar with Precisely, we have the combination of software, data, and consulting services to really help you achieve your goals overall with just your data strategy, so that you can get the data you need for AI, for operational efficiency, and for your analytics. We're a global company. We've got about 12,000 customers worldwide. We're in over 90 of the Fortune 100. And on any given day, we've got about 2,700 employees. Now, many of the leading brands in the world trust us to help manage their data, and hopefully you will soon be one of them if you're not already. And we work with many of the largest technology partners in the world to really help drive that ecosystem that many of us rely on for our businesses. If you'd like to learn more, you can go to precisely.com, and you can find lots of examples of white papers and demonstrations and more information about Precisely Automate under SAP Automation. or you can find more information about just overall data integrity and what Precisely can do for you. All right. And finally, I just want to thank everyone for being here. We know your time is valuable, and we definitely appreciate that you have chosen to spend it with us. Sigrid, any final thoughts before we close out for the day?
Thanks, Andrew. I just wanted everyone to know that this is a very common use case for our process automation platform. It's often the first use case that our customers look to automate. It can be a very simple process or something very complex, including many supporting objects for the material master. We've got a lot of experienced teams, and we'd love to be able to talk to you about it. Thank you.
Wonderful. And I hope everyone has a happy and healthy day. Thank you very much. Bye.